Let's look at the distributive property and its opposite, which is factoring a common factor. First, let's look at the first two examples. You have learned before, and now this will review, that the distributive property is taking a multiplier outside the parentheses and multiplying it to all of the terms inside it. So that is equal to 5 times x plus 5 times 7, which would be 5x plus 35. I wouldn't expect most people to write this down. I have to, as a teacher, to show the details as to why it's 35 at the end. But I would expect that you know your multiplication tables well enough to use these kinds of simpler numbers to get to this answer here for this one. Now here in this case, the distributive property, the number for the multiplier is at the back. That does not matter. You will still multiply it to both of these things. So that's going to be equal to 6. Let's put the 3. 6 times 3x minus 4 times 6, or 6 times 4, but if I do minus 4 times 6, since it's multiplying, it doesn't matter which one comes first. So that's going to give us 18x minus 24. So one of the things you learned from these two is it doesn't matter whether the multiplier is at the front of the parentheses or in front, or if it's at the back after the parentheses, as long as there's no plus or minus with it. Only inside in the binomial is there a plus or minus. All right, now this next one is the opposite. It's like going backwards. Let's take this 8x plus 30 plus 72, and I'm going to rewrite it. 8 times x plus 8 times 9. Notice that both of these terms have an 8 in it, which means that I can rewrite this as an 8 on the outside and an x plus 9, the leftover things, this x and this 9, the leftover things on the inside. So what we've done is gone backwards here. Instead of multiplying the 8 into the x and the 9, we were taking out the 8 from both of them. In fact, another way to think about this in order to sometimes see what's happening is that you're dividing by the number that goes into both of them. And that 8 goes into the 8 and 8 goes into 72 9 times, so that the 8 is what you're taking out, and left over you have the x plus 9. That's another valid way for some people to think about it here. But in this case, what we did is the distributive property, but doing it backwards. And that's called factoring a common factor. Oops, I need to make it so this doesn't disappear. Okay. Sometimes when I go over with the marker, it does that. I slow it down. Okay. Let's look at an expression that has a number of parts to it. So what I have here, let's identify it. We have a multiplier 12 that would go into both of these things here. Over here, it doesn't necessarily look like a multiplier, but there is one. In fact, what you have to recognize is that this is subtracting 8x. Look at it this way. That means minus 8x. You're subtracting 8x, and you're subtracting a positive 7. I don't need to show the plus to show a positive 7. So notice that this sign changes. One of the ways to think about that is thinking of it as negative 1 times 8x plus 7. Then it makes it easier to see that that makes that negative 8x, and then negative 1 times 7 is minus 7, negative 7. So I'm going to rewrite this and then do that work. 12, 4x minus 1 minus 8x plus 7. So I'm going to do 12 times 4, which is 48x minus 12 times 1. And here, oops, this was in parentheses, very important. Here I have to see that I'm subtracting 8x, so I'm going to think of it as minus 1. Minus 1 times 8x is minus 8x, and then minus 1 times 7 is minus 7. Now we would put the like terms here together. 48x minus 8x minus 12 minus 7, which gives us 40x minus 19. All right, there we are. The vital part of this to learn is how to manage that minus sign. Okay, that's the key thing. That's the thing that you have to be most careful of, is when there's a minus, a negative outside the parentheses of a binomial. So hopefully that helps with a review about distributive property and thinking about what's really important, what you don't want to make errors on, in terms of you want to make sure you get correct, that you're multiplying both things, that you're taking out a common factor from both terms, and that you are careful with the negatives. Thank you for listening.